everyone, Megan from The Wandering Goose. Welcome back to another month of our subscription box. This one is for our basket interchangeable, and we're going to be doing it for Valentine's Day. A couple supplies you're going to want is some painter's tape for all of these small pieces, a paint pen, a sponge, a pair of scissors, your glue of choice. I choose super glue, but you can also use wood glue, and then the colors that come with your kit. If you choose to use a couple brushes, you'll want to have those on hand as well. When it comes to the painter's tape, I'm going to rip off a small section. I'm just going to curl the two ends around so that it's sticky side up. And that'll just help hold down all of my little pieces, especially these little leaves. First thing you're going to want to do is take your pieces out of the package and separate them out into the colors that you want to paint them. You are more than welcome to do the same colors that I did for the example picture that comes with your kit. Or you can switch them up a little bit using the colors that I provided, or even some of your own colors as well. First color I'm going to be starting with is the dark pink. My sponge already had some paint on it from a previous project, but you're going to want to make sure that you cut that off and get a nice fresh sponge. I'm just dabbing the dark pink on the wing to one of the birds, and then I'm going to use the dark pink for the body as well. Once the dark pink paint is dry, we're going to go through and do a little bit of highlighting with some other colors as well. But the main thing with the bird is you're going to want to make sure that you don't have too much paint on your sponge, that you fill in the score lines for his eye. Now that I have a nice coat of the dark pink on his body, I'm going to go ahead and use some of the soft pink. I already have it poured into my tray from a previous project. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put dark pink on some, soft pink on it as well, and kind of blend those two colors together to create a medium pink. Medium pink is usually a 50-50 of the dark pink and soft pink mixed together. You don't have to be quite so precise though, so that's why I just dabbed a little bit of the soft pink on my sponge and a little bit of the dark pink and kind of blended them together. If you want to blend, another option of doing the blending is to take a brush with just a tiny bit of water on it, and you're just going to blend those colors together, getting real close to that beak without crossing that line. If you cross the line, the yellow is kind of difficult for it to cover up pink. So if you do end up accidentally doing that, you're going to want to put down white first before you put down your yellow for the beak. Just adding a little bit of that medium pink that I have on my brush now from blending the bird onto the wing, and just smoothing it out a little bit and adding a little bit more with my sponge. When it comes to blending, it comes down to practice makes perfect, but as you all know, nothing is really quite perfect. So it's more of just getting a feel for it and practicing it and seeing what works for you. Not everybody blends the same way, so I like to show a couple different options of how it could be done. Now I am going to use that same sponge without cutting the end of it, and I'm just going to dab it into the soft pink and go ahead and start painting my other bird. By not cutting off the end, you will get some show through of that medium pink that's still on your sponge. So if you don't want that, you're going to want to cut the end off of your sponge before you start using the soft pink. But I didn't want my bird to be quite so two-dimensional, so if there's a little bit of show through of other shades of pink, then that's okay. I'm running out of soft pink, so I'm going to add a little bit more to my tray. With the little paint pots, what I have found is easiest is if you can take a paintbrush or even a small popsicle stick and kind of scoop the paint out of those little paint pots into either a paint palette or a paper plate. Makes it a little bit easier to use your sponges. Now that I've used up some of the medium pink that was on my sponge still, the lighter pink, as you can see, is showing up a lot better. So it's just kind of layering on some of those colors so he's not quite two-dimensional. Grabbing that brush again with just a little bit of water so I can get up real close to his beak without going across it. And just kind of gently smoothing out some of those colors, blending them together until he looks the way I want. As with all of our projects, remember, this is only paint, so if it's not coming out the way that you want it to, let it dry. You can always paint over top of it. Main thing to remember when doing this, though, again, is to make sure you don't have too much paint that you're covering up any of the score lines. In particular, this one is going to be the score line for his eye and then the score line for his belly. And with my sponge, I'm going to grab just a little bit of that dark pink. And I'm going to use it to do the underside of his belly, just giving it a little bit of a shadowing. And then I'm going to add just a tiny bit on between his feet as well to give it a little bit of shadow on the bottom of him. I decided to just grab a tad bit more of that dark pink, creating more of like a medium pink again, and just going to do a little bit around the edges of him, just to give him a little bit of definition. While I still have that more of like a medium pink, lighter pink color on my sponge, I'm going to go ahead and use it around the edge of the darker pink bird, giving some highlight to make him look a little bit less two-dimensional. Then right about here is when I'm realizing I forgot to do the wing of the lighter color bird. So it doesn't really much matter, I guess it depends on personal preference, on if the pink on his wing matches exactly with the pink on his body. So I just kind of rolled with whatever pink was starting to be on my sponge, dabbed a little bit of it on. My paint was starting to dry up a little bit in that well, so I used a little bit of water to reactivate it. And I'm just going to dab it on. This is more of like the medium pink with a little bit, maybe a little bit more of the lighter pink mixed into it than any of the other ones. Just dabbing it on, covering the whole wing, putting it on my bird, seeing how I like it. Don't really like it much, so I'm going to keep trying again. Adding a little bit of the dark pink with a little bit of the lighter pink. And I'm just going to do a little bit of shadowing on the tips of his feathers. Just kind of flicking it on there a little bit, kind of blending it. So there you have it. I have a little bit of a medium pink wing with a little bit of the darker pink on the tips of the feathers. As with all of the projects, so you can always do a different combination of the colors if you wanted. You could always make that wing a darker pink or even a lighter pink, and just whatever looks good to you. So now that I'm done with the pink, I'm going to go ahead and cut the end off of my sponge. And we're going to move on to the next color. Before I move my birds off, I decided I was going to do just a little bit of their beak. So I just have a tiny brush. It's a little bit easier to control than the sponge. And I'm just going to dab just a tiny bit of yellow right on the edge of their beak there. Once you're done with your beaks, we're going to move on to do the heart for the background. The color I chose for this particular project was the Lucky Lavender. You are more than welcome to use the pinks again, or even the yellow or the green, whatever color you want to use, or even if you have colors of your own. I just thought that the purple looked nice with this project, so that's the one I chose. So with this particular one, I'm just going to grab my sponge, move all my other pieces that are now dry out of the way, and I'm going to grab my sponge and start sponging purple on the background. The main thing you're going to want to take consideration of, though, is the point down at the bottom of the heart. When it comes down to painting the point of it, you're going to want to make sure it comes to a point as best as you can. So if you need to use a brush for that, you can, just because it may be seen with all of the leaves and stuff, so you want to make sure that that's a nice clean edge. There is not quite a laser line there to guide you, but you can kind of get an idea of where that point is based off of the cutout part of the wood. Now that we've finished the purple, we can go ahead and move on to the green. This particular green is the kudzu green. I use this green for all of the leaves. So I did first a base coat of the kudzu green on all of the leaves, but you're also going to want to make sure that you paint the leaves on the background piece as well. So for this particular, because I wanted to make that point of the heart nice and precise, I used a paintbrush for this part, and then when it comes down to doing the rest of the leaves, you can either use the sponge or the paintbrush, whichever is easier for you. Later in the video, I'm going to come back to it, but as I'm painting these leaves, I am going to end up forgetting a leaf. So the leaf that I forgot is going to be on the right-hand side on the bottom. You can kind of almost see where the curve is for that, but it's by where the my particular darker pink bird is, and so later on in the video, I'm going to go back and I'm going to paint that, but since you already have green on your brush now, you can go ahead and paint it now. To add a little bit of highlighting to these, I decided to use a little bit more of the yellow. And I'm mixing some yellow in with my green, creating more of a lighter, brighter green color. And I'm just going to use that to highlight on one side of my leaves. Just kind of adding a little bit of a lighter green color to them, giving them a little bit of highlight. So right there to the right of that is where that other green leaf should be. I forgot to paint it, so that's on me. Here I'm just using my finger to blend out the lighter green color, and then just adding a bit of lighter green to these other leaves, and then just dabbing it with my finger just a tiny smidge, feathering out the paint so that it's not quite such a harsh line. As you can see with my leaves, I did do a second coat on them, just to give a little bit more of a difference in color. That is going to be completely up to you. But now that we are essentially finished with the green, as long as you remember to do the rest of the green on that leaf that I forgot, we're going to take our sponge with just a tiny bit of the light pink and a tiny bit of the original purple from the heart. Blend those two colors together, create a split sponge. And we're just going to use it to do a little bit of pink highlighting on the top of the heart. Again, you can use whatever colors you want if you wanted to use the dark pink for this, or even if you wanted to mix up some more of that medium pink, whatever color that you think looks best to you. Now that all of your pieces are painted, provided that you remember to do that other green leaf, you can start to go ahead to kind of place your pieces and make sure everything looks together the way that you like it. Getting ready to assemble. Making sure the birds are lining up on the bottom, and that's when I noticed I still had one more green leaf to paint. So I'm going to go ahead and paint that green leaf, and I'll speed this up for you real quick. And now that all of our pieces are painted, I'm going to go ahead and put my other bird on there, making sure that the bottom line are lining up with the bottom of the backer piece. Make sure everything is flush. And right now I'm just kind of placing pieces to make sure everything looks the way that I want it to. And I'm putting the pieces in the correct spot so that when I get my glue out, I know what I'm doing. These leaves do have a home. So as you can see, those two leaves were too close together to fit up in that spot with the way that the score lines are. So I had to go through and find a different leaf that lines up a little bit better. That leaf does go there, so that one's in the correct spot. That one is going to be one of the leaves that are closer together. Same with this spot here is going to be the leaves that are closer together. And then here is going to be one of the leaves that are a little bit more kind of far apart, I guess. So now that you have a generalized idea about where everything's going to go, if you have a paint pen and wanted to do your accent lines on them, now is a good time to do it, or you can do it after it's glued. I find it's easier for me to do it before they're glued. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull a couple of the pieces off and do my accent lines. Now is also a good time that if you are one that likes to do the I guess the speckling on them. So with that, you're going to take a paintbrush with just a tiny bit of white paint on it and use your finger and kind of speckle them. For this particular project, I chose to do the embellishments of the 3 little dots that are kind of grouped together instead of doing the speckling, just to give it a little bit of a different look, trying something new. But if you don't like the 3 little dot method, then you can always do speckling, or you can just leave it blank as well. Now that I finished all of the accent lines that I want to do, I'm going to go ahead and grab my Gorilla Glue Super Glue. I particularly choose to do this so I don't have to wait long for it to dry. But if you don't have the Gorilla Glue, basic wood glue works fine just as well. The only thing you'll have to remember with that, with some of these pieces, it's going to take a little bit longer for it to cure and dry, so they may move on you while it's drying. But with the Gorilla Glue, all you got to do is hold it on there for a couple seconds and it's usually pretty stuck good. Once you have all your pieces glued together, you can go ahead and add that back tab to the back of it. Unfortunately, we are discovering though that not all plywood is created equally. So this new batch of plywood that we've been getting is actually just a tad bit thicker than the original batch if you have one of our baskets from long before. So if you're encountering that issue, the solution that I have for you is to either sand down that back tab a little bit, or even if you take a flathead screwdriver or something and peel a couple of the layers off of the plywood and then attach it to the back tab, then it should be able to slide into your basket a little bit better without being quite such a tight fit. We do apologize for this inconvenience. Unfortunately, we're getting our plywood from the same source, but wherever they're getting it from, it's not being very consistent with its thickness. So we're working to see what we can do about that, but in the meantime, those are some of the solutions that we've come up with for these. Once your pieces are dried and ready to put in your basket, you can go ahead I chose to do mine with the white side. If you have a brown side, you can always switch and do it on that side as well. So that is another month of the subscription box. We really appreciate all of your subscribers. You can shop online, thewanderinggooseofholland.com. Thanks.